Does anybody know whether we have an app to call a taxi? Some of you actually did some research online before you got here, correct? We are faced with challenges every day in our industry, and in the recent past, we've obviously been faced with some significant challenges. We're Yellow Cab of Broward County. Now, Yellow Cab is a trade name. It is not a franchise. There is no national Yellow Cab. We are Yellow Cab of Broward County, which has really, other than the name and the business, no relationship to Yellow Cab in Miami or in Palm Beach or any other Yellow Cab except Tallahassee. We're also under the common ownership and management of Yellow Cab of Tallahassee. Otherwise, we are it. And so from our standpoint, I want you to understand that what we're looking for is a marketing plan and a marketing, let me see if I can use the word, a campaign that promotes what we are and what we do here. Okay, and let me go through a few of the things that are going to be part of this challenge. Firstly, we said, and I know that up there we said teams of 2 to 4. Actually, if any of you don't play well with others, you can go along. If you think you can do better without somebody, you have that option to do that. Okay, we're not setting the rules. If you want 5 people, 6 people, to the top 2 teams, we will grant a $1,000 scholarship to the winners of the contest. But here's what you need to do to win. You need to blow our socks off. You need to tell us how we become relevant in today's world. And by that I mean this. Livery, which is actually for hire transportation, has been regulated historically since, anybody have any idea? 1640. In 1640, King of England had a problem in London. And the problem was that they had what were called hackneys, which are horse-drawn carriages, that were charging whatever they wanted to go wherever they wanted to go, and they had a problem with pollution too. Okay? And so the subjects were complaining, hey, we got too much in the street, and we're getting ripped off by people. So in 1640, the King of England's answer was, let's regulate rates, and let's regulate the number of hacks that can operate here in London. Fast forward to this century. We invented the internal combustion engine. People started doing replacing cars, but we are replacing horse-drawn carriages with cars. We were still doing the same thing, and that is transporting people from point A to point B in a vehicle for a fare, for a charge. And it had been pretty much that way until the recent past, where we were regulated heavily. Believe it or not, for us to change the colors or the appearance of our cars, I had to actually ask Broward County for permission to do that. We used to have a pink taxi that we roll out in October for Breast Cancer Awareness Month. I actually had to get permission to use that taxi on the street because they regulate most everything we do, including our fares, including the number of vehicles. They regulate drivers, what our drivers do, what they don't do, on and on and on. And then all of a sudden, in 2014, appeared this 2-headed monster called a TNC, a transportation network company, which took technology which wasn't new or unique. We'd had the same technology. Believe it or not, our app was published to the Apple Store before Uber actually became a company. Okay, we had app-based dispatch using GPS technology about 3 months before Uber actually operated. Okay, so it wasn't unique technology, but it was disruptive from this standpoint. For the first time, governmental agencies and the public didn't care about the regulations the way they had in the past. And while they didn't care about the regulations, you now had a national platform or an international platform with Uber and Lyft, where somebody getting off of an airplane in Seattle could pull out their Uber app, get a ride, just like they could do here or in London until last week, and otherwise they could do it, and they're cheaper than we are because they lose $3 billion a year, and so that's why they're cheaper than they are. We don't lose money in our business. So ultimately, here's where we are. We find ourselves not being relevant any longer. Now, I'm not saying we're not relevant, okay? We have roughly 500 cars and about 600 drivers operating them at this point in time. So we haven't gone away. I don't think we'll ever go away. But how do we get relevant again in our market? And that's what we're looking for, is people who can help us get relevant. Now, we have two things that we have done recently, which, has anybody ever taken a taxi cab? Okay. What do you find to be the most obnoxious? Well, let's get away from the stinky car and the driver doesn't speak English and so on. What's the really most obnoxious thing you think you find in a taxi cab?
Driving.
Huh?
The driving. Safety
Okay, safety wise, okay. How about the meter? Watching the meter tick, 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 and not knowing what it's going to cost you to get from where you're going or where you are to where you're going. Okay, the unknown. Okay, so we eliminated that. We're the first cab company in Broward County, or in the United States, that has technology. We don't have meters in our cars any longer. Now, we will give a metered ride. Okay, we will go ahead and charge the traditional way. We use a tablet to determine time and distance. But if you give us your destination, or if you give our driver your destination, or you provide the destination through the app or our website, we'll tell you how much it's going to cost to go from point A to point B. So we've done a few things to try and become more relevant from a technology standpoint. Problem is, again, we have the Ride Yellow app. How many of you have not heard of Ride Yellow before you knew you were going to come and look at this competition? Okay? How many of you had not heard of Uber before you knew we were going to come and talk about this competition? Wow, what a surprise. Nobody knew we had an app and everybody knew about Uber. And so that's what I mean by relevant. We have done I'm going to coin a phrase, piss poor job of letting people know that we have technology, that we have new, modern, clean vehicles. Over half our fleet now are alternative fuel vehicles. They're the Prius hybrids or the Camry hybrids. And we're replacing all of our cars as we go along. That we have, when you talk about safety, we have a team of instructors who are trained by the National Safety Council, who are former police officers, and cameras in every car, okay? That we have point-of-sale systems in the back seat of the cars, Verifone, which you use at Publix or any of the other major stores. We've had this technology. We've had the systems. We were protected, and maybe we were fat, dumb, and happy, saying, well, we're protected by our regulatory scheme until this TNCs came along, and now all of a sudden the regulations about having people out there giving rides for money became less protective and less relevant. So let me give you a little bit about who we are, and then we can answer questions. We have, like I said, we dispatch over 500 cars. We have 600 drivers. We are a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week, 365-day-a-year call center. You call us up any time of the day. We dispatch county-wide. We are not allowed to pick up, legally, outside of Broward County. We are licensed to operate within Broward County. We've been in business since 1960 under the same owner. He happens to be 85 years old, but he was a man who had a lot of foresight. In 1967, he saw a young man in a wheelchair getting into a modified van. And he asked the guy, how'd that happen? And the kid said to him, look, I'm paralyzed and nobody would transport me. So I went out and I had somebody modify this vehicle for me. He said, there's a need in this community for that type of transportation. So in 1967, he put the first accessible vehicle in an on-demand transportation fleet in the United States. He actually contracted with and modified vans in 1967. For those of you who know Plantation, back in the heyday, I happened to be a graduate of Plantation High, 1975, so it gives you a little bit about, most of you, 75, were people alive then. Anyway, back in the day, Motorola had a huge presence out there, and they approached him and they said, look, we want to get into the computerized dispatch business, and we like to start with taxi cabs, because we like to roll it out to pizza and dry cleaners and anybody else. Would you be interested in partnering with us? Sure. So he became the first computerized dispatch taxi company in the United States in partnership with Motorola. in 2002, when GPS technology was coming to the forefront, we were the first company in the United States that used GPS technology to locate the closest car to a passenger and make sure that we got the car that was available to the passenger fastest. Okay. In 2005, we were the first company outside of New York City that put in the rear seat credit card processing systems. So even though he's 85, he has had a lot of vision and a lot of insight into this industry. But one of the things he never did is he never thought that the regulators wouldn't care any longer. And he didn't have the vision and foresight that you would say the people who founded Uber and Lyft did, that there'd be enough of a groundswell among the public that the politicians would essentially say, criminal background checks, it's okay if you do it, okay? We don't care too much about the quality of your vehicle or anything else. You make sure it's okay. It's your problem if it enters the traveling public. And so none of us, and I actually, when Uber was finally licensed, I was interviewed with the county mayor, a guy named Tim Ryan at the time, and Tim said, well, you know, John could do this himself if he wanted. And I said, Tim, I could have done it 5 years ago if I thought you guys didn't care, okay? Because we had the technology, we just didn't realize that the regulations really weren't as important to them as we thought they were. We still operate with, we do have some advantages over our competitors. We are able to do what are called flag or street hails. Legally, and if you do use Uber and Lyft, make sure that you get them through the app, because if you don't, your insurance, you may not have insurance if something happens, okay? So don't do a street hail with an Uber or Lyft guy, because they're not allowed to do it legally, but there are also some insurance problems. But we're legally still allowed to pick up street hails, people, and we don't get much of it, but that includes people walking out at an airport or walking out at the port or walking out at a hotel who wanted, without pre-scheduling the cab, they just get into it and go. Okay? Now, our upfront pricing still applies. If the passenger gives the driver his address or her address, then the driver can go ahead and enter in the destination into their dispatch equipment, and it will tell, and they can tell them up front, this is what it's going to cost you. Okay? So the ability to get the upfront pricing is any way you secure a yellow cab, and it is through the app, it is through our website, it is through a street hail or whatever way it is. We have some other things which I consider, you know, when Uber came out, they said they were the safe, reliable ride. I don't know if that still is on their website, okay? Here's what I'm going to tell you about safe and reliable, okay? From a safety standpoint, all of our drivers have FBI background checks. They're screened and licensed by the county, okay? We don't have the ability to determine whether somebody is licensed or not licensed to operate a taxi. That's all Broward County, and there are sets of criteria in our ordinance that says this is what will allow you or disqualify you from driving. We also review their driving record monthly to make sure that they're still valid and that they have no problems with it, prevent them from riding in it. We use the DriveCam in-vehicle camera system, which is a driver behavior modification system. I have 9 people on staff who've been trained by the National Safety Council to actually train and coach drivers to make sure that they don't go too fast. We actually monitor their speeds, and we get emails if they're going over speed, okay? So they don't want to hear from us, hey, slow it down, or come in and get coached. So from a safety standpoint, I hold our record up to anybody else who provides ground transportation in Broward County. Reliable, I'll tell you this, what makes us reliable? We don't surge price. Our pricing is set at a maximum based on what Broward County says, but we do charge under, and you can negotiate now with our fixed pricing, with our upfront pricing with the driver, and he's allowed to negotiate with you on pricing. And we tried to tell them that if they come out, and they do get this, oh, where are you going? I'm going here. How much is it? It's whatever. Well, Uber's only this much. Well, our drivers actually have the ability now to go ahead and enter that number or a different number into their system, legally run the meter, okay? It just comes up with whatever the negotiated price is, and comply with Broward County's ordinance and still be competitive if they want to be with other forms of transportation. But whether it's New Year's Eve, or there are 8 ships in the cruise port, or it's in the dead of summer and in the middle of July, you'll know you'll never get charged more than the county says that you get charged. So that's reliable, okay? We're reliable for people who have special needs. We do provide the largest on-demand transportation system in Broward County for people who need to have special needs, whether it's wheelchair or sight impaired. All of our equipment is sight impaired adapted, so that it all, if the passenger goes ahead and they tap the middle of our Verifone screen, it tells them what the fare is and so on and so forth. It's all audible. We're reliable because we've been here for 57 years, and we're reliable in that regard. So I think we're safe and reliable. With that, I don't know if I've said too much. I'm open to questions. Go ahead.
Do you have any presence in social media?
Yes, we do. Now, I'm going to tell you my social media experience. Not good. Why? Because I graduated high school in 1975, okay? All right? And, but here's what we've done. We have been with New Times. They promised things, didn't happen. We've been with Lion Fuse. They promised things, did a better job than New Times, but it wasn't great. We have now just signed a contract with Cox Media, who's promising things, but the contract kicks in this next week. And we have 2 themes that we are looking at right now. We're going to do an A/B test on some marketing ideas. One is Know Before You Go, which is going to feature our upfront pricing, know before you go, but also know that when you get into a yellow cab, it isn't some guy who pulled up in a Toyota Corolla who you thought might have been your Uber driver, and you jumped in there and the guy says, "What are you doing in my car?" You know? So you'll know that it's a yellow cab, all right? Know that your driver's been screened and so on and so forth. But the main theme is the pricing. Know what your rate's going to be before you go. And then the second one is, and I won't tell you, one of them is my idea, the other one is Cox Media's. The second one is we've kept yellow but changed everything else, okay? And we're going to do an A/B test and see how that goes. We're probably going to launch next week on social media. It will be web-driven, it will be IP address-driven, and so on and so forth. So according to what they're telling me, it's going to be fairly sophisticated. Now, what I'd love to do is get some really brilliant ideas here from you guys, whatever the teams are that we put together, and then fold that into our social media and our other marketing. Yes?
We talk about the regulations.
Yes.
How flexible are they? Great ones.
Well, look, they're written by man. They can be changed by man. I would have to actually sit down and see what the proposal would be to make the changes and then take it from there.
Would you consider that? Or
yeah, I would consider it. You know, it would depend. I mean, I don't set the I don't regulate myself.
Yeah.
I have to go. I'll give you an example. To get rid of the meters out of my cars, let me tell you what. My meters were mandated by the Department of Agriculture Division of Weights and Measures. I forget what chapter it was. So in order to be able to run without meters, I actually had to, this last legislative session, I had to lobby and petition to eliminate the requirement to run meters in Tallahassee. And then once that happened, and it was effective July 1st, I had to go to my county commission, which mandated the use of a meter, then get them to agree to go ahead and allow me to use the tablet instead of a traditional taxi meter. So it is not, you know, I can change things here in Broward a lot faster than I can in Tallahassee, but it has to make sense, and I have to sell it to 9 people who get to ultimately vote and say, yeah, we agree or don't agree, that's a good idea.
One more question. What's your target market?
My targeting, well, we serve, I'll give you one. I love asking this question. Very few people will get it right. We do flag business, which is our airport business. People walk up and get into a taxi, okay? We do a lot of calls. Yesterday, we dispatched 2,600 callers here in Broward County, okay? And where do you think the most calls come from that are asking for a yellow cab?
I would think.
Huh?
Over 40?
No,
where? What location?
The airport.
The airport. No, that's walk up. That's flag. I'm talking about people either using the app or calling our,
I think it's in.
Yeah, but give me a location.
A hotel.
A hotel. That's where I would have guessed until I knew what the answer was. It actually is the Walmart
Oh.
on State Road 7 in Lauderdale Lakes.
Okay.
Okay.
I know exactly.
Any idea why?
Is there nursing home or something here?
No. I'll tell you what it is. You have folks who are transportation disadvantaged and who will take the bus to do their shopping, but the bus is routed, so you have to walk the first and the last mile, okay? And they don't want to wrestle all their bags and everything back onto the bus, so they'll take a taxi home. And that is the single location, month in and month out, that calls us more often than not for a taxi. But that's not the only location. I mean, we are county-wide. Yeah, I will tell you, we have lost a lot of the night business, which are the younger crowd, okay? But we serve the entire market. We, by ordinance, are not allowed to refuse service anywhere. We must pick up wherever somebody requests. At one point, because we geo-map our dispatch, and I called up my call center guy and I said, why were we picking up somebody on, it must have been a problem with our GPS, on US 27? He says, no. He says, you have to understand, people get broke down out there, break down, they don't get broke down, their car breaks down, and the police will call us and ask us if we'll transport. And so we transport anywhere, everywhere, 24/7, we're required to by the county ordinance. And so we do have the entire demographics. And because our drivers are screened by the FBI, and because our drivers are monitored by camera, if I were a parent, and I am, although my daughter is much older, I would not let my child ride in a TNC, but I would not hesitate to let my child ride in a taxi, and we do transport children. So, okay. Yes, sir.
Are you in the business of picking up only passengers, or are you also looking into transporting other stuff, like if I want someone to pick up my dry cleaning?
Let me say this, our primary business and the focus of what I want to do here is transporting passengers.
Okay.
Somebody was telling me about Uber Eats. Anybody ever use Uber Eats?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm going to do it, huh? I think I may do it because it sounds like it's a pretty cool product. And, but that's next year for me if I decide that we're going to, I think I'm going to do Uber Eats. I think I'm going to download it on my phone because, it sounds like, you get a limited menu from where agrees to do it, but you don't pay, I understand, you don't pay the delivery fee, and so it's a pretty decent product. So the answer is, we have delivered a lot of things throughout Broward County, but we're concentrating on passengers here.
All right.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Do you do anything like promotional wise? Because I think why Uber is like the biggest thing is because they always have giving out cards, if you ever go to an event, or your first ride free or something.
Yes. Short answer is yes. We go to a lot of events. We do a lot of promotions. We work very closely with the city of Fort Lauderdale on the events on the beach. We do our app. We do have, if you register your credit cards, we don't require you to register your credit card or even give us your personal information to use our app. But if you do that, then we'll give you $10 off your first ride. We say, like Uber does, first ride free up to $10. Okay, all right, and so and I I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna try and do it in a way that is okay. Sometimes people have better ideas than we do, and so sometimes imitation is the best form of flattery. The upfront pricing, the guaranteed rate. When I saw Uber do it, I said, that is a winner. To know what it's going to cost you before you actually take the trip, it's a winner. You think about it. What other form of transportation do you take, whether it's a train, a plane, a boat, where you don't have to pay up front and you don't know what it's going to cost you to get where you're going, other than taxis? And I said, well, let's go ahead and let's bring ourselves up because we have the technology. And by the way, we use, just so you understand that technology, we use Google Maps, most direct route, to come up with the fare. So our driver can choose to go the long way, and it doesn't impact the fare any longer. It is by ordinance, they're required to use the most direct route. And so we use Google Maps most direct practical route because we do use real-time traffic and real-time conditions. So if there's a road closed or something, we don't use that for pricing. So our drivers, it makes their choice of route irrelevant. And you know, we are the exclusive at the Diplomat. We are the exclusive at the Hard Rock. We are the premier cab company in Broward County, no question. Our drivers do a lot of trips to and from the Diplomat down on Ocean Drive in Hollywood. And you know, if they decide that they want to go to 595 to the airport, that will add $4 or $5 to the trip. Now it doesn't add it because if they do the upfront pricing, it is a direct route up A1A to Federal and then over to the airport. So, yes, ma'am.
Is there an option on your app to share fees with other riders?
Not yet, okay, but we do have some options that aren't there that the others have. We will, for example, we have our street hail function.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I really like about using the app, and I use my app, I use other apps. Tomorrow I'm going to Chicago, I'm using American Taxi's app, is my ability not to have a financial transaction in the car. Now, that is a great thing because it's all done electronically. We have the ability to have, if you get into the back of a yellow cab that you didn't use the app to hire, you can put in the cab number and it will sync your cab up with your phone, and you can then pay with your registered credit card if you decide you want to register a credit card. Our ordinance limits some of the things we can do with sharing rides and fares, and so that is one thing I am going to work on here in the fall with our commission to be able to do that.
Say like myself and like 3 other people got into the car, then there would be no way at this point to let them use their cars and mine to split it.
Well, if the driver could go ahead and the driver could go ahead and let's say that he puts in the guaranteed rate, okay, and it comes up to $30. You go ahead and negotiate $10, $10, and $10, and you could run your credit card, each of you, and it comes up to $30. We do that, by the way, in FSU, where we are the Knoll Cab program up there. So we have drivers up there who do that a lot.
Okay.
But it really is up to the driver and whether or not they know how to do it. We've tried to train them, and if we find that they don't, see, that's the other thing we have. You have a problem in the yellow cab, you can call us up. You leave your phone in the yellow cab, you can call us up. We have a 24/7 telephone number. And so what we try and do is if we find an issue like that, so Monday morning I get an email from the assistant port director. Largest port and largest cruise port in the world, depending upon who counts, because Miami also says they're the largest, okay? But it is one of the largest. I'm a big fan of yellow cab. I got into a cab at the airport, and the guy wouldn't take my credit card when I got home. But she emailed me, or she could have called our customer service. We have a stated policy: if a driver refuses a credit card or won't run the credit card, then the passenger gets their fare reimbursed, period, okay? So you ride for free if the driver does that, or refuses to run the meter too. And that's plastered all over the back of our cars and decals. Somebody else had a question? Yes.
I'm assuming you can pay in advance, correct?
Yeah, with this feature, you now can pay in advance, okay? So, yeah.
I have 2 questions. So first, about what percent or what part of the yellow cab users actually go through the app?
Not enough, okay? Right now, it's about 6 to 7% of the people who get dispatch trips are doing it. It's gone up a little bit over the summer. I don't know why, but it has increased about 2 percentage points over the summer. So we're up around 8%, but historically it's been 6 to 7% who actually use dispatch to get a car, use the app.
And the second question, actually, just wanted to ask you, like, is there any research done on how, like, what the customers think about the drivers, like customer satisfaction?
Yeah, we have 2 things that we do, okay? The first one is that if you either use the app and give us your email address, or you call in, we ask you, can you give us, because we send promotions too, when you call in, will you give us an email address? So if we have your email address, we send you an email survey at the end of the trip, automatically. If you don't, each one of the backs of our cabs have a little card that says taxi feedback, win $100. Because what we do is we have a drawing for everybody who gives us feedback, and once a month we give away a $100 gift card. And so we get some feedback. Clearly I would love to get more, but we're about choice. I mean, some of the other folks, you have no choice in some of these other options. So you can choose with us whether you want to use your credit card, register your credit card, pay cash. We also have accounts. You can choose how you're going to get your cab, and we're going to let you choose whether you want to give us feedback or not, as opposed to requiring that. Yes.
Also, in the instance that your driver probably gets lost in picking you up, do you have the option on the app to call them and let them know exactly where you are? And are you able to see when your driver is actually coming towards you, or how far they are?
Okay. Second question, yes, absolutely. First question, not yet, but within the next 3 weeks we will have that option. The other thing, which I'm really excited about, let's say you don't use the app, but you call our call center. Hopefully next week what you'll get is a link through a text that you can actually tap. So you didn't use the app, it will bring you to Google Maps, and you'll see the name of the driver, a picture of the driver, which ours shows you, and also will let you watch the cab progress towards your address on Google Maps, and that will be introduced. I was talking to a developer and my IT guys about it today. Hopefully we'll have that out next week. Okay. Yes, sir.
What kind of fee does your cab have? The cars, and maybe the passengers that use taxi services want to ride in a cooler car. So.
Oh, what kind of fleet?
Yeah.
Okay. We right now are running fewer and fewer Crown Vics. Okay. Now I'm going to say this, all right, because I'm going to make a defense of Ford and the Crown Vic. All right. There's nothing wrong with a taxi cab that's a Crown Vic. It was a tremendous police car, and it was a tremendous taxi cab. Okay. I will tell you though that we are migrating towards the Prius. So right now we are operating over 200 Prius, whatever you call it. And it actually is easier for me, I'm no small guy, to get in the back seat of a Prius than it is a Crown Vic. Size of the door is bigger and the seat's a little higher. So Prius is really a tremendous car, and they really hold up well. Then we have a lot of Siennas, and we have a lot of the RAV4s. We're moving towards a Toyota product right now, the reliability. When the Crown Vic stopped being manufactured, we went out and bought 40 Fusions. Okay? Bought them brand new, 40 Fusions. And we found that unfortunately they just weren't suited for taxi cab use. You have to figure, no longer, but back in the day, our fleet was doing over 300,000 revenue miles a week, okay? A week. And now it's about 180,000 revenue miles a week. But we were putting, right now we have Fusions that are approaching 320,000, or not Fusions, Priuses that are approaching 320,000 miles, even though we only put them in 3 years ago, okay? So we, unlike your private passenger car, we put miles on them. But I just want you to understand, we inspect those cars every 2 weeks. I have a full garage, and it is staffed by certified mechanics, including master mechanics, and we have a gold, I forget what the name of it is. We have an ICAR certified body shop, which is what you need to be in order to do insurance work. So we have about a 5-acre facility on 7th Avenue between Sistrunk and Sunrise Boulevard, where we do those kind of maintenance, that kind of maintenance and everything. I think you'd be surprised if you do ride in the yellow cab, the condition of the cars and the cleanliness.